it's time to consider the path of your feet, for crying out loud.
Welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm, and today I have something that came across my feed that we need to talk about. But before we get there, I want to address something real quick. We have a reason to, before you pick up your phone and call the police. I may be in a basement right now, but I do not want you to worry. This is mostly voluntary. I am with my in-laws in Canada, and this is the in-law suite. So that is why the scenery looks a little bit different tonight, but everything is great. And I have gathered, my guest tonight is Logan Bleazard. So Logan, if you want to hit that camera, hopefully it doesn't give you too much grief. Logan is a therapist, and although I am a certified professional, he's actually gone through the rigor of actually getting licensed in the state of Utah. Grew up in the church, great guy, awesome member who understands a lot of men's issues in the church. And just as a quick plug, he's actually the therapist we use for the Strength of Dads, our Discord, to help dads who are in Dead Elders Quorum stay connected. We talk faith, family, finance, fitness, all of it. And Logan pops in there twice a month and helps guys through anonymous questions to answer their questions, give them tools, and help them figure out the problems that they're facing. Check all of that out at strengthofdads.com. That's strengthofdads.com. And let's get started into this reel, because I saw this thing and it hit me harder than Jacob Hansen hitting Kwaku L with logic and facts from a recent Pono live stream. You probably won't understand that, but for those in the LDS crowd, that joke really lands. So let me pull up my screen and let's get into this. Okay, this is an account. I believe this girl is a member of the church because her sweater says Mona, Utah. Don't know a whole lot of people that sport a Mona, Utah sweater outside of Utah. But her account is the McCabe Life, and this is a video of her that we're going to watch real quick and react to afterwards, of a couple where the wife, she's making breakfast, the husband, he's scrolling, and let's just see what happens here.
Okay. Your egg's almost done. Can you get your toast and put butter on it, please?
Yeah, I'll do it now.
Babe.
What?
Can you stop scrolling and go put butter on your toast?
I'm going to. Hold on.
Oh.
Babe, I'm doing it.
You don't do anything.
I'm doing it right
You
now.
really don't do anything.
Give me.
No, bro.
Babe, let me see.
No.
I'm doing it.
You don't do anything.
Look,
You're freaking lazy. I told you to do something.
I'm getting the butter.
Don't do it.
Babe, give me.
No, bro.
Yes.
I'll do it. No. Can you stop?
She's acting like she's his mom, and she's like kind of a mean mom. So here's the deal. She's not wrong for wanting him to participate in like the process of finishing his breakfast. That's fine if she wants support. But he's also not wrong for wanting to finish a couple videos or finish his scrolling. They're not wrong. Where it got wrong is when she started to like ream him. When she started to cuss at him later in the video, which I cut out. When she started to call him lazy. And then to say, no, I'll just do it. Listen, lady, you got two choices. If you want a happy relationship, you got two choices. Number one, do the toast for him. Lovingly, not nasty, right? Or let his toast get cold. He said he would do it. Like, this is the thing that women struggle with. We struggle with control, and we struggle with wanting things to look a certain way in a certain time frame. But guess what? It doesn't even affect you. You were a great wife. You made his egg. He said he would butter his toast. Walk away. Put the egg on a plate and walk away. The need to be so controlling and to demand that whatever you say, he jumps up and jumps through hoops immediately is what makes men feel controlled and mothered, and then they want to back the heck away and not engage. This kind of controlling behavior has to shift, because guess what? If his toast gets cold, next time he'll get up sooner. But what's not going to make him get up sooner is being yelled at and criticized by his wife.
Ooh, okay. So she's dropping a lot of truth bombs there, spitting a lot of facts. Logan, when you hear something like that, what are your first thoughts?
Uh, um, uh, lots of clients running through my head is my first thought.
Is that right?
Lots
Yeah.
of scenarios, lots of situations,
So
and,
there's a lot
and
of toast not getting buttered in southern Utah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, metaphorically, right? Yeah, and the reality is, I see pros and cons actually. From the video for both men and women. And I think of myself, I'm like, I probably got to get up quicker to help my wife with the butter. And sometimes I'm like, hey, honey, you should hear what that lady said. Let me have cold toast. It works better. So, right, I think I can relate to lots of it because I get the men in my office, I get the women in my office, right? I hear both sides.
Totally.
So clinically, right, from my standpoint and my experience, it's common, right? We all have patterns, we all have habits, right? For the guys, right? A lot of the time we're busy, we're distracted, we're doing something. Women are taking care of
Right.
5 million things every day at home, and so they're stressed. They want someone to listen. The kids haven't listened yet. So there's a lot of validity to both sides. I appreciate her perspective. You usually won't hear that from another woman very often. Um,
You don't
anyways,
say.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting to see something like that. I never seen that on social media. I don't do tons on social media, but yeah, those were my thoughts, I guess, initially.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this. She said, like, hey, put the toast down. The one thing that surprised me about that video was seeing that the man's behavior was not an issue. I think most people would view that and say, well, the guy was being lazy. He's a bum. He needs to get up. He needs to butter the toast. But it was really interesting that she said, no, no, no. What he's doing is fine too. He's allowed to choose if he wants cold toast or non buttered toast or to finish his videos if he wants to. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, is because I
Yeah, I
think
love it.
culturally we're programmed to view that as like he's just being a lazy bum and he needs to get up and help his wife.
Well, and like I said earlier, I think that's right, Hayden. I think most people will jump one way or the other depending on their own experiences. Some people are like, "Man, leave him alone," and many
Right.
men as well, but a lot of women would be like, "I made you eggs. Get up and eat your freaking toast, dude. Do your own stuff. Be a man, grow up." So
Right.
clinically for me, I was we talked about the questions yesterday, but I'll throw some thoughts at you right now that are kind of out of organization with what I was going to share, but
Go
there's a
for it.
book. There's
Yeah.
a book that maybe you'll link in the link or add to the link. It's called
Totally.
Behind Every Good Man. It's a book by John, by the way. I believe he was speaking at a forum or a conference. And ultimately, just a little background if anyone's interested, you can go read the book again, Behind Every Good Woman or Behind Every Good Man. Um, and they're like, we had this panel discussion helping men know how to navigate their wives, kind of like we're talking a little bit, but him and a bunch of other professionals did this format. And at the end, a woman's like, what about us? What do we do in the flip situation? And so this book is exceptional because he says in the book, he's like, me and these other like master's degree, PhD therapists, right? Like all of us like looked at each other and we're like, we don't know. And so it's a new phenomenon, right? Like you said, culturally, it's not normal. So I love that. And he brings up so many good points. Some of it, just like anything, any book or information, you're not gonna love all of it. But for anyone who's interested, that's an exceptional book. And I would say read it husband and wife separately. So you're not attacking each
Yeah.
other the whole time. But it's a really great resource. It's very, very short because it's more of like recorded speech or something. I don't know exactly. But that was
Totally.
one of my thoughts. Um,
So now there was a cycle of behavior that I wanted to
yeah.
point out with that video. So this is
Okay.
something that I think a lot of LDS men actually struggle with is they probably struggle with seasons. I don't think every wife is going to be like this all the time. I think there are probably going to be seasons of this where
Totally.
maybe things are stressed out at home and maybe there's a little bit more pressure in their life where the wife starts to say, all right, hey, I need you to do this and I need you to do it now. And if he doesn't start immediately doing it, then she starts to control. So that's her
Totally.
becoming the mother figure. If I were Jordan Peterson, I'd call her the devouring mother. And so the dynamic here is that she's saying, let me control and do things a certain way at a certain time, and that shifts the dynamic of the relationship where he was once her partner, now he is an employee, where she's like, "Hey, I'm the boss here. You
Superiority
go do
factor.
this. You do it now."
Yeah,
Totally.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so now I think that makes nobody wants to be treated like an employee in their home. And so I think what it does to the man. So we have this is the starting point. She starts to control. The man starts to pull away. The man is withdrawing, where he's just like, hey, don't treat me like that. I'm going to do it my way.
Mhm.
And then she doubles down on control, which makes the man pull away even more, which then makes her control even more, until it gets to this point, where where wives end up carrying the total load of the house. They start doing everything and micromanaging every single millisecond of this poor man's life, and the guy is just expecting it. He's just like, "Oh, fine. If I'm going to be an employee, I'll be an employee."
Path of least resistance.
And, totally. So then it leads to this weird, funky place where she no longer has a partner in the house, and she's complaining like, "I never have a partner in this house," and he's at a place where he's just like, I'm just another child here. She just tells me what to do. I do it. That's it. So I wanted to talk about this because I think there are a lot of men that probably suffer, that may be in a similar scenario as that poor buttered toast brother at the beginning of the video. How do you stop that cycle? How do you get out of that cycle? How do you move towards a healthier, happier place for those who are in that cycle?
Sure. So I want to comment to something you said earlier, that the wife said, let him eat cold toast. It comes to another thought I was going to share earlier as well. One of the biggest things is, and it's actually for wives, but I say it in front of husbands all the time in my office when I have couples, because I think we established this, or you maybe did the disclaimer and stuff. I'm an LCSW. I'm not an LMFT, right? I didn't study in school that I'm a marriage and family therapist, but I've studied it. I've studied a lot of Gottman and some other guys that are big in the industry, and some of their methods and whatnot. But I've worked with plenty of families and couples and relationships throughout my career now. But one thing the lady said was just let him have cold toast. Like what I'm emphasizing to women and men that they need to hear is, truly most of us are teenage boys. We really don't grow out of that, in my opinion. And again, I'm not like crapping on men, but like we're impulsive and we want what's in front of us, and we have bad delayed gratification, and it's like we actually operate often like teenage boys well into our adulthood, if not for most of us for a long time, if not forever. And it's important that she said that. I love that she said that, because how I tell my clients and people is, and this is me coaching, right? This is my consulting business, so it's a little bit separate because I do a lot of coaching with this stuff. But guys, just like if you don't want to be babysat, first of all, and this is kind of the harsher feedback to the men, is like, don't act like a teenager, you idiot. Like I get it. I don't want to be told what to do either, but like, if you don't want her to talk to you that way, be more responsive. And that's probably my first thought. But the women can't change men, just like we can't change our wives, right? Nor should we want to significantly. I think influence is big, changing is different. And that's a big differentiation that I make to people. But to her point, it's agency, right? A bunch of LDS people like we're believers in agency. Let him do this. Moms do this with their kids as well all the time, but it turns into us because we act like kids a lot of the time. So to break that, it's women, you might need to parent your child / husband in this time and say, let him eat. It's no fight. He has a natural consequence, just like we're trying to do anyways with our children. He'll usually learn. Or the reality is, some men, unfortunately, are fine with cold toast. Or they'll be like, it's all right, I'll just have an egg. And people don't think like that.
It's like, hey, that's his preference, like if he doesn't want to do it.
But I said, unfortunately for the women, because again, like, well, I did this for you out of my kindness. I love you. I made you dinner. And it's like, I don't like to say that to women directly or in a negative way or derogatory way, but it's like, let him choose. That's where you got to treat him like a teenager. Let him learn from his own consequences. Men don't want to be controlled. They do not want to be mothered, right? The whole point of this episode, and probably others for you. And John, by the way, talks about this a lot. He talks one chapter in the book, or a part of the book, about men need an exit strategy. And I'm just going to give the example kind of for a bait here, because I think it's worth it. Men want exits. When women, I bet most of the men on this channel are probably going to be smiling as I share this. What goes through your mind and how do you feel in your heart and your stomach when on a Saturday morning you have a free day, everything's good, and your wife's like, hey, I need your help outside for a minute today. I need your help around the house today. Most men that I've ever spoken to are like, oh crap. They get like tunnel vision, right? Their pupils get bigger. And they're like, this is never going to end. I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock after cleaning the whole house and doing the whole yard. And he says, look, if women do that, men do that. They freeze up, they'll find excuses, right? They'll leave. And so he suggests, he says, look, tell him, hey, I have a list of 10 things. I don't care when you do it. It's kind of like the toast idea. I don't care if you eat, but here's your stuff. And then give him the freedom to choose. It's hard because I validate, and I think we should validate the wives in this. But the reality is, right, we can't change them from doing that, and they can't change us. But this ability to like surrender and let go of that from the wife very much helps most men, if that's what we're looking for. I know this podcast is mostly for men, but if
Totally,
women
yeah.
can learn to think about their husbands kind of as teenage boys and what would work, usually it works. So I know that might be sound punitive, but I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, it works.
Yeah,
What are
so
your
I
thoughts?
did a little bit of research in this, and
Okay.
from what I found a couple articles. So
Okay.
one said that this specific type of behavior is often called like demand withdraw. So one partner pursues,
Yep.
critiques, demands, or controls. The other one
Yep.
shuts down, withdraws, stonewalls, avoids. The pursuing partner escalates. The withdrawing partner retreats further. It's not a communication problem. It's attachment panic.
Is this Gottman?
Research published in the Journal of Marital and Family Therapy in 2024 found that during conflicts about the wife's issue, men were more likely to withdraw, and women higher in attachment anxiety were more likely to demand. So basically, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, so it's not as much about toast. It's not about as much about, is the toast going to get done? Is it going to get cold? It's about control, in my mind. That
And for
this is a
women, the
woman who,
attachment. She
right,
wants to
right.
feel like he cares or notices or appreciates her specifically. And that's the anxiety. It's like he doesn't even care or appreciate this, right? That's the threat to the relationship, just to be clear.
So, because that video was talking about control. So, and this is bringing up attachment. So, what is the difference here between attachment anxiety and control?
So attachment anxiety, again, and this is my take, but attachment anxiety
Yeah.
presents as control. Control is the symptom of attachment anxiety, right? A feeling of insecurity, or I'm not important to him, or he doesn't appreciate me. That's a threat to her relationship. It's what's important. Biologically, we need that. Biologically, that's why she gets upset, actually, right? Think about like biologically, literally with children and families. She needs her
Yep.
partner, and we need them to prolong our seed and give them the best life possible. It's natural to want that. In our society, men are looked down upon to be that weaker emotional thing. To be honest, and I'm vulnerable with this all the time. Like, I am way more the chick in my relationship with my wife, and everyone knows it. Like I'm much
Yeah.
more needy and a pursuer. She's like, yeah, I'm good. And it's like it's funny because a lot of my clients are like, what? Just because I'm a little bit different.
Yeah.
And right, attachment anxiety attachment doesn't mean always that you have like some major attachment issue or abandonment issue. But when that new person, that spouse is your primary, not caregiver, but person, attachment figure, and you don't feel like it's safe or you're losing love and connection, that's when the control comes out to directly respond. So if you men can learn to see that as attachment and hurt, and she's feeling like I'm not paying attention, how different would your response be? And that's feedback that I would give very much like feedback to someone in a positive way. Buddy, instead of respond, dude, leave me alone. Just let me have cold toast. Just be
Right.
like, hey, honey, I got stuck. I was on my phone. I apologize, honestly. I take accountability for that. Do that first. So respond to her needs, and then say, maybe later, once the escalation, right, that feared threat that your wife has goes down because you've apologized and owned it, then you go back and now we can have this discussion when our wives aren't feeling that threat and they're actually open instead of defensive. And you can say, hey, one thing that I think would help me is sometimes when I get stuck, like, it's not you. It has nothing to do with you, actually. I know it feels like that, but I just I have ADHD, or I this or that. And then it's like, I am here for you. I'm sorry. I will work on this. One thing that will help me, honey, is maybe just offer it once and step away. I will respond better to you if you do that. That's a good way to kind of go about that, if that made sense.
Totally. So, to me, it sounds like uh, culturally, we're asking a lot of the men in this conversation. We're saying like, hey, recognize that she has this need for attachment, that she feels invalidated. It seems like we're kind of making the case for the wife here. Now, what kind of responsibility does she have on her shoulders when it comes to her responsibility with the
So the,
husband?
the
Where it's
reason
like,
I
hey,
didn't say that is because, right, like when we're talking to men, like we're focusing on what they can control. And one of the questions you
okay,
asked,
yeah,
like what's the woman's control part here? I just don't ever know enough. And coaching like this is tricky, and it's not therapy because I don't know context, right? That's so
totally,
unfair
totally,
to say, hey, your wife needs to hear this from me. I'm a professional. You need to listen to this. However,
yeah,
I think it is important and validating to us men that it's like, look, we just have different love languages. And so to help women, and I have these conversations with men and women together often, and it's like, hey, so your question, sorry, just so I can make sure I specify it, your question directly was what? What with women? Say that again.
yeah. So we've given the perspective of like, hey, this is what the man can do in this
Sure.
scenario. What can the woman do in that scenario outside of saying like, hey, just let him have cold toast. Treat him like a
Uh,
teenager. Let him have
to
cold
be
toast.
honest, that's the easiest or
Yeah,
simplest, I should say. For many women, it's not easy, but it is simple. And we try and tell them, just do that, and it's easy. That's like telling us to not stress about money when our job's on the line. It's that important to us, we're gonna freak out. So ultimately, maybe some feedback for the woman or what we could do. Again, I love her example. Just let him have toast. But what I tell so many women in my office, because I'll have them met their husband in occasionally, or vice versa, I'll say, look, if you grab your husband like a teenager, I'm going to come back to that, or like a little kid,
yeah,
and I'm not literally saying you have to do this, but grab him by the face and say, honey, or sweetheart, or whatever you call your husband, right? Or your wife. And it's like,
yeah,
when you ignore me, even if you're not trying to, it makes me feel like you don't appreciate me. It makes me feel like you don't care. It makes me feel like I'm not important, like you don't appreciate the work I do every day when you're not around and you don't see it. When I ask you, what can I do to help you listen faster? What can I help you do? And I'm okay if you tell me to just leave the toast out. So it's just directly connecting. Or look at the video. What does she do immediately? She asks really nice the first time, right? She
right,
kind of
right.
asks nice, but a little more impatient the second time. And there's like, all right, just be done. And it's like, just like with our kids, I know I come back to that a lot, but like, just get his attention, which is hard, right? At least for me to hold my
Totally,
attention.
totally.
Get his attention, express love and your actual feeling without being mad or angry or sobbing if you can help it, and just tell him that it's important that he listens. The vast majority of men that I know that I work with, they'll slowly improve that. It takes practice, it takes time. But does that answer your question? That those are the two things I
Totally.
would say.
Yeah. So the other piece that I found, this is an article called "The Male Shame Response." So
Okay.
it talks about how men derive significant self worth from competence and capability. Being corrected, second guessed, or taken over, especially in domestic contexts, triggers a shame response that most men cannot articulate but universally feel. The response to that shame is almost never increased effort. It's withdrawal, avoidance, doing less, not more, because doing less means fewer opportunities to fall short in front of someone who has already decided you're incompetent.
Excellent article, excellent explanation. Um, I think that's very real. Just like with pornography, right? LDS culture, right? We hear about this all the
Totally.
time, right? The shame of it, that if we just hide away or hide better, then it's less threat.
Right.
Just like to the woman's attachment, it's threat to our ego. And when I say ego, most people get a little bit on edge with that. When I say ego, it's ultimately like an identity thing. It's not we're egotistical, narcissistic, chauvinistic jerks, but
Right.
hey, this is important. What's my primary job biologically, and what is society pushed, especially in America? What's men's jobs? Be stable, be well, provide for the family, and protect. Would you add to that?
Right, right. Yeah, no. Protect, provide, preside. I think in LDS culture, that's where it lands.
Absolutely. And so when our wives undermine or we feel like they do it better than us anyways, by the way, talks about this in the book too. It's like, why would I try when I'm probably never going to do it as good as her? And if you're truly
Right.
humble and not an egotistical jerk, you'll probably agree that that's the case. Like women do things better generally like this, especially in the home. Even
Yeah,
some of the traditional providing, I think probably half of us on here would say, yeah, my mom was always the one who started scripture study, or that kind of thing. But
right.
but the problem is, right, what happens to the man then? He's going to retreat and be a kid, just like in the video, just like you talked about earlier. And so yeah, the shame of it only is discouraging. Women truly need to understand that. Similar to pornography. Like I'm not advocating for people to just that have pornography issues to just ignore them and be fine. But the same
Right.
idea is like, look, shame is not going to help. Healthy support and connection, even when there's a mess up or a slip, that's what drives recovery in a lot of things in life with people. And so, yeah, I think the
Right.
male ego and the shame culture and taking away what one of the only things we do have, you are not going to get a good response from the husband in that situation. So it's a great point in that article.
Totally, yeah. So I look at it and there's a question that
Okay.
that I thought of. So
Okay.
I mean, you work with LDS couples quite a bit.
Sure.
So
Or with
is
everyone. Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Well, totally. Um, but is there a point where this cycle becomes really hard to reverse? You know what I'm saying? Like where
Yes.
there's shame and then withdrawal and then shame. At what point does it become there's like a point of no return, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. The reality is there is points of return where as soon as one person officially and totally checks out, which is hard to define, right? You can't like put a number on that because it's
Totally.
subjective. But when one does it, that kind of starts the end in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time it's both, right? These cycles that you're talking about, this smothering, mothering, shame, disconnection, right? Pursuer, avoidant, that type of thing, like you're talking about retreating. That's Gottman, I think. At least he's one of the main authors about it. But he talks about another thing that if people are interested, I'm just trying to give resources as well. There's an
Totally.
idea, a concept called negative sentiment override that John Gottman talks about.
I've heard that. Yeah.
It's exceptional to like study and learn and get out of, but ultimately it's like you have enough of these cycles, exactly what you're talking about. This is just a good example of it, that it leads to now every time the husband's and the husband's and the wife cooking dinner or doing dishes or thinking, hey, he might help here, she's already assuming and expecting him to fail. And that's what happens in the cycle. And he's like, it doesn't matter what I do. She's going to be mad and disappointed and unsatisfied no matter what I do. And so all you're primed to see in negative sentiment override is the negative and what you've seen before that didn't work. And you even twist when there's a positive, when she's like, hey, I made your eggs. Would you please would you please butter your toast? He's like,
Yeah.
well, what are you going to get mad at me next for? And it's like, dude, she was right. And vice versa. So negative sentiment override is like one of the most toxic things, and it's hard to come out of, but it's possible with good counseling and good information and a lot of work.
So it seems, from what I remember reading about it, is that it, like, you can interpret it. It's like just regular things that he does, you start to view them through a negative lens. You know,
you're
so
primed because it's protection.
Yeah, so he's just sitting there at the table, just scrolling through videos. You know, the average Joe would look at that and he's like, yeah, he's having a great time.
He's just looking at videos. He's taking a break.
He's chilling, yeah. And so, but she views that as just like, she's going off the rails at that point. She's like, oh no, look at that. Confirmation bias starts kicking in hard. She's like, I knew it. He's a no good ne'er-do-well. He's a dirty, rotten, pig stealing kind of guy. This is just terrible. And so, and then it gets into a terrible place, you know, where the cycle just continues to grow. So I think one of the takeaways that I'm learning here is like for wives. So is that if you want your husband to work with you, it's more about communication. It's not going to work super well to just scream at him, belittle him, make him feel shame. That will drive him further away from you. If you want to actually get his help more frequently, it comes down to sitting with him and speaking about things openly, having that conversation in a low stakes environment, not in an environment where like the kitchen's messy and you're like, hey, so it really makes me feel undervalued when you don't wash the dishes, you know, and then like she's trying to expect him to do that right there. It's like, get into a great environment, you know, a clean space, you're happy, and then just have that conversation with him. Like, hey, let's talk about it. There's some things I want to talk to you about.
I would say generally
communicate that versus
sorry, man.
shame. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. I apologize. I was just going to say, I would say as a general safe rule, it's going to sound excessive. Give yourself 24 hours before you come back to it. Because if 24 hours goes by, probably half the time you're like, it's not worth it. I probably should have just done this. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but give it 24 hours and you'll be less escalated. You're less likely to fight and escalate more. And Gottman also shows they've done physiological monitoring when people argue in they call it a lab, and they have people argue or fight, and they say the research shows that like your nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, I believe, the one that like slows you down, it takes 20 minutes after you escalate or fight to actually reset. And so his research shows that you need 20-minute reset where there's no conflict to even think about being like, okay, I am actually ready to talk. You might feel calm, but the reality is your body's not, and it's going to go right back very quickly. So just kind of as a barrier, minimum 20
Right.
minutes. I usually tell people, look, if it's a big deal and you know it's like, dude, you are mothering and babysitting me, I'm about to leave. Give
Yeah.
yourself 24 hours so you respond out of love and say, hey, I want to connect to you. I actually, sorry, it's my ADHD, which is often just an excuse, but it is often very relevant. Like,
Yeah.
hey, it's not you. I just numbed out. I didn't mean to. I'm trying. And it's hard for us, right? After work, we're exhausted, we're tired, just like them. Da-da. So it's like, hey, if you want this to be more effective, I'm not putting all the responsibility on you, but just talk kindly to me. I will work on it. Like those types of communications do infinitely more, right? Than shaming, than pushing away, mothering, nagging.
Right.
So yes, if that helps, if that answers your question.
No, that totally does. So it's like men respond super well to praise. It's like,
Most
hey,
do.
they respond super well to praise. So like recognize when he's doing something great, praise him for that. Like if he's not doing his job and blah blah blah, it's like hold off on the critique, that train of thought. Hold off on the shame. Hold off on trying to figure out who needs to be shot today. Like we're in Soviet Russia, like all right, boom, kill that guy,
Who
right
gets
to
to get
jail.
chewed out today? Yeah.
That's right. And so instead of that, start figuring out like how can I help and support him. So now there's an
Yeah.
interesting cycle. As I started to dive into this, there's a really interesting takeaway for me after looking through all this data and knowing what I know about most therapists in the LDS space. So there are a ton. The main ones are they lean very feminist and they post a lot about weaponized incompetence. And so I think a light bulb went off in my mind right here where I was like, hold on, wait a second. I think weaponized incompetence is a keyword that triggers women that have reached the point in this shame cycle where they're like, that's exactly what he's doing. But the thing is, if you give people a term like weaponized incompetence, that term itself, it invokes imagery of like battle, of war. So even in that self, it's like you're setting yourself up for a divide where there are enemies
And malice. That phrase
and
to me
malice.
shows
Yeah,
malice. Ugh.
totally. And so when weaponized incompetence starts getting thrown around and women start saying, oh yeah, then in their minds that starts planting like he is my enemy, he is my adversary, he is intentionally trying to make my life
Creating
difficult.
divide. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so then they start getting into that negative sentiment override, and that's when the more feminist therapists out there, I don't want to name names, Julie Higgs, but gals like her start getting after a lot of these guys or a lot of these women. They're like, hey, he's making your life miserable. Feminism's the answer. This will help solve all the problems. Where they then say like, hey, weaponize incompetence, start trying to make things equal through ultimatums and threats, blah blah blah, and the problem with
Boundaries
that is
what they say usually, right?
right. Like let's start setting up boundaries and stuff like that. Where I think the key to all of this is just like communication. Hey, let's take a step back. Let's reset. Let's try and communicate a little bit more, because I think using the term for like a husband who's struggling, right? If his wife starts looking online and starts finding a bunch of posts saying like he's doing this purposefully, he's trying intentionally to make your life difficult, that's only going to ratchet her up even more
And make you more defensive.
malice. And he's going to get more defensive and pull away even more because that's going to only increase the shame cycle. So that's only going to escalate. And then Julie Hanks is sitting there just like, hey, want to talk to somebody about it? Hey, for $99.99, oh, I'll definitely talk to you about it. So it's like getting people right into her pipeline.
Sure.
So what if as if somebody comes into your office, let's say, and they start throwing around, like a wife starts throwing around weaponized incompetence to describe her husband, what does that tell you about where she's at emotionally?
Again, I think I told you briefly about this when we talked earlier yesterday, but my first thought, honestly, is like two things. First, I don't want to speak to where a woman's at unless I talk to them and I know enough dynamic. So I just want to make that
Yeah.
clear. And there's not many women probably listening, but I think it's important because there's a lot of therapists that I know of, and I've heard of, that like to diagnose spouses or other people in family. And I'm like, look, I simply don't like that. I don't think it's healthy. And clinically, it's not helpful for therapists or professionals to do that. I think people
Totally.
love it. I don't listen to a ton of Julie Hanks. I think she has some good stuff, but yeah, she's a little more on the other end of it. But ultimately, my point was with her is like, I think there's valid points, but they make people feel good, right? Like you said, like it's almost informational bias, like they're hearing what they want. And we do that all the time as therapists, right, with clients. But that's my first thought is like just to be clear, I don't want to like diagnose or tell, but oftentimes when women say that, I think they're just spent. They're at their limit. They don't understand. They haven't communicated. They're not feeling connected with their husband. And so to your
Yeah.
point, communication is key. But we have a responsibility to initiate because traditionally women do that. I'm not saying everyone, but traditionally 95% of my clients, women are the ones that are initiating connection and deep intimacy emotionally. And so men can do that. But to this whole point, I was going to share something, another resource. Sorry, I'm throwing a whole bunch at
Yeah,
you today.
let's do
I
it.
think people appreciate it. There's what I would go to with my client, male or female in this situation. And if they were in the room together, I'd say, look, what we really need to focus on is our bids for connection. It's another John Gottman principle. It's exceptional. And there's so bids for connection are ultimately any gesture, message of any kind, nonverbal facial expressions, anger outbursts, crying, it doesn't matter. Those are bids for connection. I want to connect with you more. And that's a lot of the time these women's responses. I'm not justifying or minimizing what they're doing. I'm not saying it's right, but that is usually what it is a lot of the time in my office. And there's three responses we can give to bids. So the one partner bids for connection, the spouse can turn toward, which is some way loving, showing I love you, I hear you, I see you, right? Ultimately, there's
Right.
turning away, which is disconnecting, stonewalling, right? I'm done. That's a typical man response after years of being mothered, right? I'm out of
Totally.
here.
Yeah.
I'm
He's
sick
like,
of this. Headphones, yep, they're just gone. And then there's
yeah.
turning against, and turning against is fighting, pushing back, getting defensive, getting critical, returning the criticism back to her. And so if you can learn to recognize bids for connection and be better at turning toward, even when she's mothering, that will help both of you. Right. And so if people want to study that, that's great information. I'm not a certified Gottman therapist, so I don't claim to
Yeah.
be, but he has a lot of good stuff and resources all over. A lot of, I don't know, propaganda is the right word, but a lot of stuff to pay
Yeah.
for. But he has a lot
A
of
lot
free
of
resources
advertising. Yeah.
that you
No.
could go look up. Yeah,
I think he talks about that in his book, 7 Principles That Make Marriage Work,
yeah.
which is like phenomenal book. My wife and I read that. It's got a ton of great activities in there,
hmm
exercises. So if you are at a point where your relationship is starting to feel strained, you can use those exercises in that book to help you get back on track. Like phenomenal book.
One more, his newest one, he wrote with his wife, Julie Gottman. It's called Fight Right. It's like the most updated and it is phenomenal. It talks about fighting patterns, this pull and pursuer and withdrawer. It talks about a lot of these same principles. If you're interested in that kind of self-help for a marriage, those are great. To respond to your point, I'm not justifying or defending women here, but I think it's fair to understand and empathize. I think they
Totally.
just get exhausted. Just like when we get home, she's like, "Will you take care of the kids? I'm tired." We're like, "I'm tired too." Holy, and we kind of all have that battle in my opinion.
Yeah.
But like if you can lean into a wife, do something for her for a few minutes. I'm not putting the responsibility on the husbands, but it will help if you connect and show and then say, "Hey, I need 30 minutes." Me and my wife do this. I call her every day before I go home from work. And I have a pretty taxing job, probably like everyone, but some days
Yeah.
I'm really like I had 10 sessions today. It was a long day. And it's like I'll call her before I come home as I get in my truck before I head home. It's 7 or 8 minutes as I'll drive. And I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And maybe 1 out of 5 times she'll be like, "Why are you late again? I told you." And I'm like, my client was suicidal. We were having a safety plan. Like I couldn't just walk out on him. Like, sorry, I rarely do this.
Totally.
And she gets it, but sometimes she's just stressed or she's already late for something. Where a lot of the time I'm like, hey, I need a good 30 minutes. This is another suggestion I would give to most to be
Yeah.
able to filter is call on the way home and I say, hey, I'm burned. I had 10 sessions pretty much straight today and a little lunch. I am so tired. Like, I'm probably going to be impatient with the kids. Will you give me 30 minutes to sit on the couch and watch ESPN or ridiculousness and just like veg out? And then when that alarm goes off, I'm going to take over and give you some space. So we're just negotiating, right? It's like you said earlier, it's not tit for tat. It's
Right.
not competing. It's not even and fair. But there's a lot of days she's like, no, I'm actually leaving to take Brielle here and you need to get the boys ready for bed and feed them dinner and clean the kitchen. I'm like, okay, that's different than mothering though. You
Right.
see how, anyways, I think that will help a lot of people. It does in my office.
No, totally. So like when you're both feeling worn out, it's just like, all right, because keeping in mind that you both have the same end goal. It's just like saying like, all right, how do we make this work
Absolutely.
out? Because we need space, we need energy,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. We could get the stuff done, but the kids might hate us when they're older if we are both
And that
showing up
happens.
just screaming angry, just trying to get it done, super mad at everyone. Like if the
Yep.
wife is passive aggressive, slamming cupboards, getting the dishes out, like, you piece of garbage, making me do this all the time. Like kids can pay it. They can pick up on that. It's like, hey, just take a break, lean on
Yeah.
each other, have those. I love that. That's a great suggestion. And I think that's a perfect segue for kind of the final segment here. How do we break this cycle? So if there is a cycle where women, because if there is one complaint I hear more times than not
From men.
from women in the church is
Oh, gotcha.
like, I can't get my husband to lead. I hate being a mom. I don't want another child, right? And then it's like, okay, well, how do we break that cycle where there's no more where we
dynamic.
quit the mothering?
Yeah.
Like how
Yeah.
do we get rid of that dynamic? Yeah.
Just so you know, that is literally like the question that the By the Way book answers. So it literally that is his book. But and he
So
didn't
let's
give
drop
like
the title again. The By the Way book is Behind Every
is
Great Man.
Behind Every Great Man. And I think the subtitle is like how to get your man to lead spiritually in the home or something like that. Like literally, right? Instead
Yeah.
of being the child. And this is common, right? There's research and books and everything else written on this. You asked, and I think it's both ways, but I think sometimes, right? Sure, honestly, and I'm not like a overzealous therapist. I don't think everyone needs therapy all the time. Like, but I'm a fan, obviously. I think, and there's plenty of situations where it's required and necessary to get through certain things. But I think, like you talked about, we have the same goal, and this is going to sound probably cliche. We probably have the same goal and probably feel actually more similar than we think, but very different reasons because frankly we're different species, right? Men and women operate so differently, but core needs as humans are the same, they just present differently. So the
Yeah.
ultimate answer I would say is like genuinely ask questions out of curiosity to better understand. And that's probably not what people want to hear with this, but if you genuinely, both of you, it's required or it won't help. If both of you try and ask good, genuinely curious questions with no expectations, you'll understand why it hurts them and you'll probably respond better. And vice versa, right? If she can ask him, I just don't understand why. I made dinner for you. I'm working. I took care of the kids and I'm making you dinner and you're scrolling on your freaking phone. He's like, I just wasn't thinking, right? It's not like he's being malicious, hopefully, right?
Right.
It's like, honey, if you'll just tell me this nice or come up and kiss me on the cheek, well, I don't want him to baby us. But again,
Right.
sometimes we just need a little extra love. Just make the toast lovingly. That gets old. I'm not going to argue that. But for
Totally.
us, we need to take the same approach. Hey, help me understand what's wrong when I finish a video and when you're in the middle of dinner. I don't understand why that upsets you so much. Not in the moment, like you said earlier, right? The day later. But if you're genuinely curious, empathy, i.e., or compassion, charity, what did Christ do? How did he respond to people when they asked thought-provoking or intriguing questions or even provocative questions to try and trick him? Or the woman at the well, almost every time that I'm aware of, and I'm no scriptorian, he asked a thought-provoking question and usually helped people build empathy for that person. I'm going to follow that trend personally. And it aligns with clinical research too, to be clear. But that's my direct answer. Ask genuinely curious questions. I'll give another feedback, but another thought. But I'm curious what your thought is in that, and how you kind of relate to that, or what you experience.
So asking better questions. So when it comes to breaking the cycle, from what I understand is one of the ways you can do that is don't try it in the heat of the moment. Like calm down, get into a separate space. All of these suggestions are going to work way better when both the emotional responses have calmed down a little bit. Maybe you've gotten a bubbly in your system, maybe you've gone for a walk, maybe you've done some other things,
Sure.
and you're feeling better now. That's when you have the conversation. The heat of the moment is just going to lead to more mess. I would say what I have noticed could potentially help, and this is some of the takeaways because I think for wives, it could be recognizing that anxiety that they're feeling, just saying like, hey, I'm feeling anxious right now about this toast. Why? Taking a step back and thinking like, why am I feeling anxious about this? And then running through some what ifs, like what would happen if I just let him scroll and get to it when he wants to get to it? Because I get it if it's like, hey, this is you got kids food and you're trying to serve kids food and you're like, hey, can you serve the kids food? I think that's totally inbounds. That's fair. If the husband's like,
Totally
kids don't
is
want to eat
exceptions,
cold food, like, hey, yeah. But if it's his food, it's like, hey, let him have cold toast. That's fine. So I would just say for the wife, it would be run through those questions internally, try and name those feelings, like, hey, I'm feeling a little anxious here. Maybe
irritated.
there's something
what's underneath
down here
it.
that I
I
need to
feel like
figure
I'm
out.
being ignored, like I don't matter to him. That's probably the single biggest in my experience in my office. They're like, he doesn't even
Yes.
care. They don't appreciate me. That's valid. Not that it's true that we don't appreciate them, but that's what they feel. And if they can express
They feel
that
it.
to you as a man, how are you generally going to respond? If she does it softly and gently and says how she actually feels hurt, game changer, right? That's my experience with men too. They usually respond really well to that. It's
Right.
not mothering, to your point, right?
Totally, yeah. And so the other takeaway I would say for the wives would be stay away from the shame, And so it's like asking those questions, having these conversations, but watching that tone, watching that tone. So you're not coming after him with an attack because that's just going to lead into the mothering cycle. And eventually you're going to wind up in Julie Hanks' pipeline and you're going to follow her pattern, and probably rip out of your marriage, and end up with a bunch of Botox and postmenopausal, just living the best life you can, like, hey,
And
I'm
just so
going
you
to
know,
Italy now. Yeah.
I can't tell you the patterns. 40 to 55-year-old women that have done the mothering and taking care, it's hard. I do not criticize that. I'm not a woman. It's unfair for me to. It doesn't work, obviously. But like,
Right.
I have compassion because it's like, dude, how exhausting. I don't want to trade her spots, that's for sure,
Oh,
right?
that would
As a
be
woman.
awful.
However, I ask people, how's that working, right? But to your last point where you're kind of teasing a little bit, it's like 40 to 55-year-olds, especially in the church, there's these midlife crises that we all hear about and kind of tease about and have jokes about, but it's because you do too much. You need to let your children and your husband struggle with burnt toast, right? There's another
Yes.
exceptional poem that I think men and women should both read, truly, and it's exceptional. And it's called Millie's Mother's Red Dress. I can't remember the author. I could share it with you later if you'd like, but it talks about how women give up too much. And then when they're 45, 55, whatever, they literally go off. They go rebellion. They take care of themselves. They go do stuff that it just usually wouldn't align with them. I'm not saying they're wrong or it's not true or genuine. I don't judge that. But I've dealt with many of them in my office and they're just like, I'm done. I'm done with my husband. I'm done with my kids. And again, he has responsibility,
Right.
yes, but you could have also done what? Stopped mothering. Let him have burnt toast or unbuttered toast or cold food. That's hard. I don't mean to lecture or tell women that, but to your point, it will be more effective the vast majority of the time.
Totally. Yeah. So get rid of that shame. Speak to him kindly. Speak to him like an equal, like a partner. Find a quiet time and then just let him know how you're feeling. And if he rises up and he's just like, hey, yeah, she needs me. She's asking and in a kind, respectful way, great. I'm probably more likely to dig in because
Cool.
at the end of the day, we both have the same goals in mind, you know? So
John
I think,
Gottman has a soft startup like protocol. If you're interested, it's another
yes,
resource on his
yes,
website.
totally. So that would be my takeaways for the wives. For the husbands, the takeaway would be, all right, well, notice when your wife is starting to get a little bit more anxious. Because if I were a gambling man, I'd wager that that gal wasn't feeling anxious just right at the toast minute. You know, I think it
Yeah.
was probably before that. And so maybe just taking a minute and saying like, hey, she's stressed out right now. I'm going to try and be a little bit more proactive. I'm going to try and help her. And then I'm probably going to have a conversation with her afterward about like, hey, I need some time to
I feel
relax and
this
check out.
when this happens because that's like his 3-step thing. But you're
Yeah,
exactly right.
totally. So the husband then he's helping out. He's making sure he's trying to calm things down without being like a nice guy and just repressing it because that's not going to be healthy either. It's
Suppression
like
will come
don't
out later.
bury that deep, you know. It's just like, hey, have that conversation. Let him know like, hey, sometimes I just want to veg. Sometimes I need that. That's a me thing. And
And as long as you
let's talk
communicate
about
it
it.
and there's a time limit, most wives are good.
Totally. Oh, totally. Because then they know that there's an end point.
You got it.
And because if I know for a handful of women are going to watch this and say, well, the guy should have just gotten up. And the reason being is Jordan Peterson talks about this. Like little things matter. They absolutely matter because
They determine
add
most
up over
things.
time. Yeah, so those little things, it might be like, oh, it's 2 minutes, it's 3 minutes. Well, if that's every day for decades, that adds up to years and
Yep.
years
Yep.
of your life where you're doing things that make you bitter and resentful. So it's addressing that. It's talking about that. It's like, hey, let's figure
got
this out so that we're not slamming the cupboards and passive aggressively sighing, you know, as he's on the phone
Yep.
or anything like that. So I think those would be my takeaways. Husbands, pay attention. Step up, like look around at your wife, kind of gauge where she's at, and then be sure to have those conversations when she is ready for them. You know, totally.
And
And then
I
figure out
agree.
those boundaries together.
And I'd piggyback on that last point. I told you earlier kind of the gist of it, but I literally told my wife, I said, look, if you come and sit in front of my face and you grab my cheeks, or I'm not being sexual here, but you straddle me to get my attention and you say,
Right.
honey, I've asked you 3 times. I need a husband. I need a spouse. I need a partner here. Please go do this. She does that a couple times in a week, in 2 weeks. I am on my game for months usually because like I want that. I want her to feel loved. I'm not trying to ignore her, which I think is the summary of all this. But and I'm not putting that responsibility on her because I'm my own agent, right? But it helps me tremendously. So the point that you can say is, will you do this for me when you see me aloof or struggling to pay attention or listen? And
Right.
that I think is still good to ask that of her. She's your spouse. You can ask for help. To me, that has helped many, many different men that I've worked with in relationships.
I love it. Well, we are wrapping up now. It is that time again. So before we head out, Logan, where can people find you and learn more about you?
So I'm a therapist, right? Primarily, this is more of my coaching thing here. I do coaching, consulting. I do a lot of parent coaching, parents with their teenagers and kids and stuff. But Logan Bleazard Consulting, we're getting the website redone literally right now. If you're interested just in my information, it's on Breakthrough Therapy, Washington, Utah, St. George, Utah, Breakthrough Therapy. That's like my therapy stuff if you're local or in Utah. But again, more of coaching, stuff like this where it's not really therapy at all. And consulting, we'll have that website up within the next week, I believe. I've been doing it since about 2022. With different families and parents and people, individuals as well. So that the breakthrough therapy is the immediate thing. You can email the website. There's an email on there, or a phone number. You could even just text and say, "Hey, I got the information. I'd like to get in touch with him," and my office manager will connect you to me. But so those are the main things. And maybe in future I'll drop the website so you can actually incorporate it, so people can just click on it.
Totally, yeah. We'll get that in the description for sure.
Sure.
And And if you enjoyed what you heard tonight, be sure to come out to strengthofdads.com. He is the therapist there that we use for our anonymous AMA therapy sessions. So if you are struggling, if you're a man in the church, you're struggling, maybe you are being mothered like crazy, you don't know what to do, come out to our Discord. We've got a whole anonymous survey. You can fill that out. Logan will answer your questions. You can come chat with us. We talk about it in our Discord channels. You can learn all about that and more at strengthofdads.com. That's strengthofdads.com. And until next time, my name is Hayden Holm, and this is Salty